Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform that you're listening to us on. You can also check out my work at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive hard rock and heavy metal interviews, live show coverage, album reviews, and more. My guest for episode 194 is Canadian rock artist Lee Aaron. Lee has a new album coming out on April 26th called Tattoo Me. It's a covers album that pays tribute to the artist that influenced her as a musician and a fan. Her and her band were also recently inducted into Canada's Walk of Fame. And here's Lee Aaron to tell you more about it. So today we're talking about your upcoming album, Tattoo Me. It comes out on April 26th through Metalville Records. And you say in the PR materials, you quote a Joni Mitchell song, Blue. It says songs are like tattoos. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the songs that you selected and the artists that you selected are kind of been tattooed on your brain through the years.
That was sort of the analogy when we chose the title Tattoo Me. About a decade ago, my husband and I were driving into Vancouver for some event, and he was just like playing a Spotify playlist, and this song came on, and I was just like, damn, that's a great rock song. Who is that? And it was Tattoo by the 77s. And I was like, I'd never even heard of them. And like they're a pseudo obscure California band. And I'm like, man, if I ever do a covers record, I'm covering that song. I just fell in love with it. I just loved the sentiment. I thought it was a little bit kind of brassy and sassy, sung from a girl's perspective, because it's sort of like, no, if you love me that much, then, tattoo me. I don't mean like tattoo me, but tattoo me on you. And I liked that. I just thought that was I just love the sentiment, and it's sort of all there, tied in together with the whole idea that, songs are like tattoos on our psyches and our souls. And yeah, so it just seemed like it just wrapped it up into a nice, neat package. So.
Well, in keeping with the tattoo theme of not just the album's title and the first single, Tattoo, the first video that you released was for Tattoo, and you kind of have a cool thing going on where the band is performing as a tattoo, as well as you're turned into some sort of animated tattoo as well.
I am. I said, my video director, he goes, how do you feel about being a cartoon? I'm like, I'm so down. At this age, I'm so down with being a cartoon. Are you kidding? Cartoon me, baby. He had this, but conceptually it was quite simple. Like he said, all you have to do is we have to just get some shots of you like lying on the floor and just one pass singing the song, and just stay still with your arms in this position. And I'm going to make moving animations of tattoos all over you. And I thought that is a really cool idea. I'm like, but why do I have to lay down? He said, because your hair will behave differently. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So that's what we did. We just did a couple of takes of me laying down, and yeah, and he did the rest. He's Frank Greiner. He's a brilliant digital artist, and he also mixed our album. He's a wonderful audio engineer as well. So even though I produced it and we did all the recording in our home studios, mostly mine, he did the mixing for us, and he's a brilliant mix engineer as well.
Did he also work on the video for your follow-up single, Even It Up?
He did that one as well. And it's funny because we really, a couple of weeks before that video was done, we just really had no idea. I'm like, I don't know. I said, it's sort of like looking at it now through a more mature adult lens. I go, that really was a song about, female equality of the sexes. Like, I don't think I heard it through that lens when I was young. It just kind of was like a girl waving her finger going, you're a bad guy. You're not pulling your weight. Right. And then as an adult, you go, no, this is about equality. She's going, no, like, I do for you, you do for me. I was just, we were brainstorming on the phone. I said, I don't know. I picture me like with some big red boxing gloves in a boxing ring. He goes, brilliant. Let's do that. And yeah, and then the next day I ordered some boxing gloves off Amazon, and my fairy godmother Amazon had them at my door within 24 hours. So yeah, he did that one for us as well. So he's great. So the nice thing about digital technology is that you can emulate environments without having the cost of having to rent like a boxing arena and have a bunch of people in it. You know what I mean? So I love it. You can do anything you want. It's fun.
And even it up as a cover song by Heart. I saw on your social media that you actually had a chance at one time to meet Ann and Nancy Wilson. What was that like?
Yeah, it's ironic in a weird way that our paths have not crossed more in the course of our careers. When it was a festival in the mid 2000s, somewhere, I think it was Thunder Bay, Canada, and yeah, I had the opportunity to share the stage with them, and it was really cool because our trailers were all backstage in a circle, and there was picnic tables, and so I got to meet both of them. And Anne was she was um, she's not as sort of talkative and friendly as Nancy. I'm sure because people are probably clamoring over her, going, "I love you, Nan. I love your voice" all the time. But she was very complimentary. She said, I came off stage and she said, "Huh, you sounded really good." And I said, "Wow." Said, "From you, Ann Wilson, that's a huge compliment." And she said, "Girl, you could sing anything you want to sing." And so I just thought that was coming from her, like, wow, super nice compliment. And then Nancy and I just sat backstage and chit-chatted quite a bit about our kids. At the time, her twins with Cameron Crowe were, I don't know, like maybe 12 years old or something. And my kids were little, and I was just like picking her brain. I'm like, how do you do it? Like, how do you be a mom and a rocker too? Like, I'm really struggling with how to make this work in my life, because I want the best of both worlds. I want to be able to have it all. And she said, "Well, we've kind of scaled our touring back to like weekend warrior work. And so I'm there all week long for my boys, take them to soccer school and do all that. And then I go out on Friday and Saturday night, rock out, and come home on Sunday." And I thought, okay, so it actually got me rethinking how I was going to conduct my touring and everything as well. So it was great meeting them. They're lovely human beings, and obviously formidable talents. Um, Anne and Nancy Wilson were, you know, probably more than any other female artist, the reason I became a girl rocker. I grew up listening to them in the, late 70s, early 80s, and they had, to me, they epitomized everything that I really wanted to be, which was, players. They were musicians. They wrote their songs or co-wrote their songs. They were full-fledged band members on equal footing with the guys in the band. In fact, they were the front people of the band, and they were just respected musically, and they didn't trade on their sexuality to get ahead. And they were everything that I wanted to be, right? I really respected them. I still do.
Do you have a third single planned as the album comes out on the 26th?
So that's a great question. Not a lot of people are doing 3 videos anymore because of budgeting, right? Plus, it's debatable whether they actually sell many videos, actually sell records anymore, or whether they're just an expensive publicity tool, advertising tool. So we may do something. I haven't made that ultimate decision yet, but it might be something a lot simpler, like a lot of people now are doing are just kind of like reel videos. You know what I mean? Like reels on Instagram and things where they, sing a bit of the song and have the lyrics come up, and infinitely less expensive. But so yeah, I haven't decided yet, but I'll keep you posted.
Well, I know that Someone Saved My Life Tonight. You cover that. That's an Elton John song. So it's kind of important in your life growing up. You kind of listen to it to kind of escape your boring teenage life, right?
Evolve and can mean different things at different times in your life when you're able to view it through a different lens. And obviously, we all know what that song meant to Elton John when he recorded it. And and the thing about ballads in general is ballads are not generally happy songs. They are written usually in a moment of pain or angst or longing or wanting to be rescued from something in your life, like someone saved my life tonight. And so what I love about that song is I think that the lyrics are universal enough to mean different things to different people at different points in their lives. And whether you need, if you've gone through a great loss in your life or a death or a um, divorce or a relationship breakup or a bad employer, losing a job. Like that song could mean so many different things to so many different people. And that's why I just I've always gravitated towards it. It's somewhat universal, and I always wanted to cover it. So
One of the artists I was a little bit surprised that you covered was Alice Cooper. He doesn't get covered a lot, so it was kind of great to see "It's My Body" included on this album. Kind of a deeper cut by Alice.
it's funny. When I was a really, really young girl, like 9, 10 years old, I had my mother's sister had two children, and one of the cousins I visited all the time when I was a kid. His name was Kevin. He was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years older than me. He was a huge Alice Cooper fan. Huge, huge. So when I was like 10 years old, I'd go over there and he was like 14. He had all these black light posters in his room and he had all this like his records lined up and he was growing his hair long and he was kind of a goth you know and there was so much tension between him and his mother and so I just thought like, whoa, Alice Cooper is so dangerous. Like, I better never buy an Alice Cooper record. My mother will disown me. And so I was a little scared of Alice Cooper when I was young. But then, of course, I got to see that through a different light when I worked with Bob Ezrin, who had done, multiple Alice records, and Dick Wagner, who'd also co-written with him, and there's to me something really, really cool and really special about that early inception of the Alice Cooper band. Those first couple albums are so raw and visceral and almost bordering on like punk rock. Like they're just, they're nasty. And I don't know. I thought it would be really cool to go back and revisit something that's really early. And it was actually my husband who suggested "Is It My Body." He just thought it would be kind of an ironic and humorous tip of the hat to the fact that one of my hit songs was "What You Do to My Body," and sung through from a woman's point of view, it means something completely different, right? So,
Have you had the chance to interact or share the stage with any of the other artists on this particular album?
good question. No, I guess not. I'm not looking at my set list right now. Although I did, like I've always been a huge Nina Simone's fan as well. And in the 2000s, I worked in Whistler a fair amount. Whistler is a ski resort city north of Vancouver. They have a jazz festival up there every year. And when I was singing jazz and blues, I got brought up there on a couple of occasions to be part of a jazz all-star band, as well during the 2010 Olympics. And I got to work with Henry Young, who used to play guitar in Nina Simone's band. So that was kind of like wow, I'm working with Henry Young, Nina's guitar player. So that was pretty cool. He was older, of course, but yeah, amazing player.
You got a string of live dates coming up through the spring and the summer. Are you going to be able to work in a cover or two into the set?
Great question. Everybody's asking me that. The problem is the more albums that you make, the less time you have in your set to put a bunch of material in. So, yes, we're definitely going to sneak in a tune or two from Tattoo Me into the set. I'm excited about that. But rest assured, if you come and see Lee Aaron, you're gonna, I love playing the iconic songs, What You Do to My Body, Metal Queen. Um, they take on new meaning when you get a little older, and you see how much joy that playing those songs brings to people. Because it takes them back, just like Tattoo Me, right? It teleports them back to like a place, a time, a memory, a feeling. Like I have people come up to me and go, "Oh, I met my wife at a nightclub and we were listening to your song," or "I met my husband at a Lee Aaron concert and or your song Tough Girls Don't Cry got me through just like the worst time in my life, and if it wasn't for your album, it was just very uplifting and inspirational to me." And you see how meaningful that your material has been to people over the years. And so it's like a synergy when you're playing live. You see how much joy it brings them, and it just gives you joy to play it, right? So you're going to always hear the good old Lee Aaron hits.
So I noticed a lot of your dates going into April and July. They're all in Canada, which is
Yeah.
your home country. Do you get outside of Canada much?
I'll call my manager. I'll go, I want to do like 2 or 3 shows in Europe this year. And he'll go and try to find that. I mean, I've got a couple of different agents in Europe. They really want me to come and tour, but touring right now is financially so hard to take your band from, like, especially for me, coming from Vancouver to another continent, and the rising gas prices, hotel prices. It's just, and most of these festivals, not to sound rude, but I can tell you, most of them do not have bigger budgets. And so everything is going up for the touring artist, but the guarantees aren't going up. And so I kind of artfully and carefully look for a festival or two that actually has a decent budget to cover my expenses to come over. So I'm going to be in Switzerland in November, and we're doing a really special show there. We're going to include a whole bunch of material from the Metal Queen album for the 40th anniversary, as well as a few of our hits. There was like a big Montreux Jazz Festival type of jam with all the rock bands at that festival at the end of the show. So it's going to be really cool. I'm excited. So I am coming to Switzerland.
U.S., the United States, probably out of the question.
Well, I would love to, um, but again, like I'd probably have to get onto a festival where they're expecting a Canadian band to show up on the bill, like Rocklahoma or Monsters of Rock Cruise, or I'm just trying to think of, you know, I think it's M Festival, M Fest or something like that. Uh, Otherwise, I would probably be doing the small club tour throughout the United States at this stage of the game. So, not to sound spoiled, but it's kind of easy to stay in a country where you're able to play fairs, festivals, and casinos and bigger shows, right? So, but I do really hope I get down there one day. Where are you located?
I'm in Massachusetts.
Ah,
We have casinos in the area.
yeah, whether I'd fill the seats, but yeah. Um, so, but yeah, is that your bar behind you?
It is.
It's your bar. Oh, okay, that's good. A corner shelf bar. I've never seen that. That's pretty
It's
cool.
yeah, it's all whiskey and scotch and bourbon. That's kind of my thing.
Which gives you your low husky voice.
That could be it. That could be it from all the burn. I noticed you were inducted into Canada's Walk of Fame last year. You and April Wine, Glass Tiger, Chilliwack, a bunch of Canadian, at least legends in my mind. How did this opportunity come about for you?
Well, it's not really an opportunity. It's you basically you work really, 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 really hard for over 40 years, and you make a bunch of albums, and then someone goes, "Hey, we should honor you for still being around and being so cool." So that's kind of how it worked. No, so Canada's Walk of Fame has been around for 25 years. It is like the Hollywood Walk of Fame. There are stars on the sidewalk. in Toronto, honoring notable Canadian, not only arts and entertainment, but people from science and medicine sector, literature, astronauts. I don't even remember quite all the categories, but there are, famous actors, screenwriters, like people that have just notable Canadians that have done amazing things, not just in arts and entertainment. And last year was the 25th anniversary of the Walk of Fame. Only 200 people in Canada had ever been inducted. And last year, for the 25th anniversary, they decided they wanted to do something unique and special. And they decided to call it Canada's Rock of Fame. And they went and found, um, after I guess, vetting process with whatever, I don't know how they really came to their final conclusions, um, 13 Canadian bands or artists that they felt had never been given their due, um, in like the Canadian Rock Hall of Fame or whatever. And I was one of three women that got inducted. So I felt really, really honored. And it made me realize that my many, many years of hard work, I guess, paid off in some way, right? So I was really honored to be inducted. Very honored.
It's awesome. I'm glad that you were awarded that honor.
Thanks.
You mentioned the 40th anniversary of Metal Queen. It's kind of the song that defined your career. It's endured 40 years. You co-wrote it with George Bernhardt. It kind of follows you with every album release. They usually mention Metal Queen every time they mention Lee Aaron, and this song is
Nicknames, right? They love nicknames. They love taglines. Yeah.
Elton John's the Rocket Man, and Jackson Brown's the Pretender, and I think James Taylor has a nickname too. But
Boss.
the boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the song was about female empowerment at a time where rock and metal was really a boys' club. So sort of pioneering, and the fact that it lasted 40 years, kind of a feather in your cap.
Well, thank you. I just spent an hour and a half earlier today speaking with a gentleman from a magazine called Stereo Gum, and we went through the Metal Queen video frame by frame and just discussed, like, okay, so what's really going on here? And it was, I hadn't, oh my gosh, like, I don't think I'd even really gone back and looked at that video since my kids were little. And I showed it to them thinking that they would think that maybe their mother was cool, but they were kind of like, they were like, what's that weird laser beam thing, Mom? It's like, CGI has changed the landscape of movie making so tremendously, right? Um, so it's funny because when my I think it was my son came home in like grade 2, and he said, "Yeah, my friend Jaden, at school, Mom, he said that his mom showed him a video, and it's like, I want to see the video with the cool, what do you say, the cool fire breathing robot thingy that has laser beams." So that's all he cared about as a little, 6-year-old, 7-year-old boy. And I'm like, what is he talking about? I thought, oh man, it must be the Metal Queen video. Like, and I put him on my lap and pulled it up. And he's 18 now. And I mean, I think he lasted 20 seconds. He's like, yeah, whatever. And he was off my lap. It's just like, you can't compete with CGI. But boy, that laser beam was cutting edge for 1984. Come on.
Absolutely. It's funny with my son. It's kind of with what I do here. He doesn't like some of the people that I talk to. He doesn't realize who they are and the kind of career that they had. He's like, meh.
Different generation, right? You're just, yeah, yeah, completely. Although it's amazing, I find that more and more at my shows, more than ever before, I see a lot of people like in the early 20s they're like, man, they've discovered 80s rock and they think it's really cool. And our son loves a lot of 80s rock as well. Depeche Mode and The Cure and He loves Meatloaf and Alice Cooper and David Bowie and a lot of stuff and I'm like, dude, like your playlist is just kind of like my playlist when I was 10. So it's funny.
So, since we were talking about your covers album, have you heard any covers of Metal Queen? I was able to find a couple. An artist named Marta Gabriel in Poland covered it on her solo album, and a Finnish band called Burning Point covered it in 2016.
Well, I'm going to have to look up the Burning Point version because I haven't heard that. I've heard the Marta Gabriel version, which is she did an excellent job. Yeah, she's so yeah, I mean it's flattering when you have women that will, take empowerment from that song and want to cover it for sure. Yeah. I'm going to have to listen to the Burning Point version though. I haven't heard that.
It's pretty good. It's power metal.
Cool.
Are you working on any new original material?
So yes, we always are. um, but we don't. How do I explain it? We're many of us in the band are songwriters, like Dave Reimer, Sean Kelly, and myself. And what we tend to do when we get together for like we'll make another original album soon. We'll just come together and I'll go, hey, bring your best, like five best ideas you've been working on in the last year. And then we get together and we just kind of brainstorm together. We'll sit around and jam. And that's how we wrote Radio On. Like we literally got together in a room for a weekend and jammed out the songs. And even though all of the lyrics were not finessed perfectly, I will just often step up to a mic and just sing gibberish. I'll sing whatever comes into my head. And it's interesting because I just heard an interview with Rick Rubin, the producer, and he was talking about the same methodology, even though I'd never heard this interview before, of having singers and writers just get a microphone and just sing whatever comes into your head. And he said a lot of the times those phrases or the sound of those phrases will stick because that's what sounds good in that spot. And he said he loves to write with people that way. And almost every record we've done was written that way. Where, I just stood up and sang something, and like a song like Soul Breaker. I think I was singing something, soul something, and then Dave Reimer said, what about Soul Breaker? Soul Taker I was singing. He said, what about Soul Breaker? I'm like, Soul Breaker, that's even better. And then we had the chorus by the time we were done jamming the song. And then I, went and finessed all the rest of the lyrics after that. But Fire and Gasoline was written that way too. So, yeah.
We got to get you on the microphone and get you mumbling.
Yep. It's just like gibberish ranting. So it's fun.
And those are all the questions I have for you today, Lee. Your new album is Tattoo Me. It's out April 26th through Metalville Records. Fantastic covers album. I enjoyed it, and I wish you the best of luck with it. And thank you for telling me more about it today.
It's wonderful talking to you again, George. And thanks for doing the interview. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon in the future.
Once again, I want to thank Lee Aaron for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out her latest album, Tattoo Me, out April 26th through Metalville Records. Head over to your favorite music streaming platform. Take a listen to what's available. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy. Support the artist. For all things Lee Aaron, head over to her official website, leeaaron.com. I also want to thank Nathan T. Burke and Metalville Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.